Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. On today's video we're talking about the Summer Solstice and Litha, more specifically about the spells, rituals and magical practice that you can carry out at this time of year. While in the past I've done videos talking about the history of these celebrations and the way that you can celebrate it for yourself, today I really wanted to focus on the different spells, rituals and magical practice that you can carry out. Everyone's magical practice is going to be slightly different. Some people will choose to do nothing on these Sabbat celebrations, others will choose to focus their energy on particular aspects of it that they would like to manifest, while others simply enjoy doing some divination for the Sabbat season. There is such variety and flexibility with all of this, so I wanted to share just a few of the things that I am carrying out this Litha season, and perhaps it might inspire you within your own magical practice. I will be leaving timestamps down in the description box if you are looking for specific things and maybe not everything that I'm going to be talking about. Today we're talking about sun water, divination techniques, relaxation methods, as well as fire rituals, candle magic, and jar spells. So there's quite a good variety that you can pick and choose from. Do remember though, everything within witchcraft is variable and flexible, and if you see something in this video that you would like to adapt to your own practice, feel free to adapt it however you see fit. You don't need to take my spells and rituals and copy and paste them. If anything, I would recommend that you add your own personality and your own magical flair into the spells and rituals that I'm talking about. So with that being said, let's get started with some spell work. One of the main things I wanted to do this Sabbat season was to draw on that solar energy and imbue it into some of the items that I plan on using later on in the year. A passive technique would be to lay out some of your items on the summer solstice and allow them to absorb some of that solar energy. Though do be careful with this, depending on where you live, your items might melt or they might become damaged in the heat. That really does depend on where you are in the world, so just be cautious. A more active technique would be to manually draw on that solar energy and push it into your items. Much like if you were drawing on the earth's energy for grounding, or if you were charging items yourself, it's a really similar technique. You push out your energy, you latch onto some of that solar energy that's coming down from the sun, you pull it and draw it back into yourself, and then you push it into your items. That's probably the best visual representation I can give for this, but you are essentially just pulling in bits of that solar energy into your own energy field, and then pushing it and imbuing it into the items that you want to charge. That's a really useful active technique that could be quite easy for some, but it isn't always practical for everyone. If you struggle with time, mobility, or energy, it can be really difficult to charge a bunch of items all in one go, especially if it could take you 30 minutes to an hour depending on how many items you have. So for me, I like doing everything all in one go and I stick it in a jar. Now this jar is designed to magnify that solar energy. The sun feels so much warmer behind glass than it does outside. That's why a greenhouse or a car feels so hot in the summer. We're going to use that same power, that same energy to imbue items with this solar energy a lot faster than if we were to do it otherwise. Now for this technique, I am using a glass jar. The size is going to vary depending on what it is you want to add inside, and I'm also using a candle. Now you don't necessarily need the candle. I'm using this as a way of continuously adding additional energy in. So not only is it going to include solar energy, it's also going to add energy in based on my intention. So it's kind of a twofold energy draw that's really going to supercharge all the items inside. For this, the candle I'm using is a goddess candle, mostly because it's a candle that I'm really drawn to, and it's one for me that also embodies abundance and also prosperity, growth and development, which is really what I want to focus on when I'm working with solar energy. It's also a very positive figure for me, and so I will use a goddess candle. If you don't have access to a goddess candle, you can use any kind of candle. You can use a tea light, you can use a spell candle, whatever it is that works in this particular scenario for you. You can also change the color depending on the specific aspect of solar energy you want to draw on. Really, the options are endless. Except perhaps a ginormous candle. I think a ginormous candle on a tiny jar might be a little bit too much. The items that I'm adding in are also going to be very flexible based on what you have. For me, these are the things that I am choosing to charge this Sabbat season. So I have in a Preseli Bluestone Thumbstone. Now, Preseli Bluestone is the stone that was used to build some of the Stonehenge stones, and it is a very powerful stone to me. It's very evocative of magical power, connection to the other world, and also spirituality. And I really enjoy using Preseli Bluestone at this time of year. You'll see it here and also on my altar space. So I'm adding this stone in. I'm also adding in a carnelian bracelet, which is something that I'm going to be able to wear every time I need additional fiery energy, solar energy, confidence, and creativity. In there as well, I'm adding in a small clay pentacle charm. This is going to be used within further spells and rituals to help bring that solar energy into my space. I really enjoy using pentacles for this because it does offer that protective property, and then you can also imbue it with other qualities. In this instance, it would be that solar energy that I want to add into my workings. I'm also adding in some marigold. I do believe that in America this is known as calendula, but I might be wrong. For me, this is all about that happiness, prosperity, abundance, joy aspect of solar energy. And then I'm also going to be adding in some red rose petals because for me this is all about positive aspects of that energy. I really want to focus on the positive side of solar energy because we can't forget that it is literally a burning star. And because of this, it does have a lot of potentially negative qualities as well. Nothing is ever purely positive or purely negative. You can take solar energy both ways, and I really want to focus on the positive aspect in this specific working. Now within this, I'm also going to be adding in a little sigil. Now this is a sigil that I have created for this Sabbat season. If you would like to use it, you are welcome to use it. It is a representation of that positive energy that is drawn in from the sun, and I will be adding this into the jar as well to further link this particular spell with that solar energy that I'm after. So when all of your items are gathered together, I am then going ahead and cleansing the items. Some of these have been on market stalls, some of them have been hidden in cupboards for years, so I go ahead and cleanse with some rosemary. Rosemary is probably my default cleansing agent. It actually grows in my parents' back gardens, so I have access to a lot of it, and it also is a fiery plant, and so I really enjoy using it for any working that involves the fire element, which is why you'll often see me using it when I'm doing my candle spells. So I cleanse all of the items and then I start imbuing my energy into it. I am requesting the solar energy of the sun to be drawn into this working. I'm also working with my ancestors and with the spirits that are around me to draw that energy in and assist me with this working. This can be a really useful technique if you do struggle with your energy manipulation yourself. Reach out to your guides, reach out to your spirits and your ancestors, and they, if you've started to build up that relationship with them, are more than likely going to be willing to help you, especially if they can see that you are struggling. So I draw in all of that energy. I was lucky that I did this on quite a sunny day, and I start imbuing it and adding it into the jar itself. Once I'm done with the jar, I will then do the same with every single item that is going in, especially focusing on the items that I want to be charged, such as the thumbstone, the bracelet, and the pentacle charm. Once all the items and the herbs are inside, I then add the sigil in. Now the sigil for me is the focal point of this working. It is what is going to link it to that solar energy even when I am not focusing on it. And so I make that clear as I am putting this sigil into the jar that this is the tie that is going to link that solar energy into my working. When I'm ready, I charge the jar again, I seal it up, and then I adhere the candle onto the top of that jar. Now to do this, I melt the bottom of the candle and then I stick it down while that wax is wet, and I make sure that it's really solid before I continue. If you were using a tea light, you can just put the tea light on the top of the jar. That is a completely fine way of doing it, but if you are using a freestanding candle, please make sure that it is super stuck, and I mean super duper stuck, so that it doesn't have the opportunity to even accidentally fall off the top. Now I then added this onto my Litha Altar, and that is where it will be burned. I will be burning it gradually as we get closer to the summer solstice, and then I will put a new candle on it specifically for the summer solstice day, and I will burn one candle all the way down on the summer solstice. Now you can really burn as many candles as you would like on top of this. If it is a freestanding candle, do remember that the wax will run down the sides, and always be careful that it's not going to be landing on something that you don't want it to. But for me, this is going to add extra fiery energy into that working. You can also specifically target that working on a certain aspect of solar energy by adapting the candle that you put on top. The intention that you set to it, the energy that you put into it, perhaps the color, perhaps the oil, whatever it is that you are working with, will then sway that working a little bit towards what it is that you're after. So as an example, if you and your partner are working on this to amplify the passionate energy within your relationship. You really want that fiery solar energy to do that. As a couple, you might want to be using a red candle or a heart-shaped candle. You might want to carve your names onto each side of that candle and then stick it to the top and use that as your emphasis for that working. Another example would be if you want solar energy for protection, so you want it to burn away anything that is going to cause you harm, perhaps using a black candle and carving your name onto it or the people that you would like protection for onto that candle, and then using that candle to sway that working. You really can adapt this in so many ways. For me, I just wanted the positive energy of the sun to be imbued in, and so that's really what I'm focusing on. So this candle is going to be sitting on my altar where it's going to be charging in all that beautiful solar energy until the day of the summer solstice, and then I will fully burn an entirely new candle. So that is one spell that I'm doing for the summer solstice. It might seem a little bit complicated, but this allows me to set it and forget it, and it essentially allows me to supercharge all of those items without having to do too much energetic work besides what I've done for the purpose of the spell or ritual, which to me is a lot easier than charging every single individual item. Now, at the end of all this, when you're ready to open up that jar, everything inside will be supercharged, so you might want to actually keep the items in the jar when you're not using them. I will use the herbs as well as the petition in other spells and rituals, especially when I want to draw in on that solar energy, and then the items inside I will use individually, and over time that solar energy will fade. If I then need to recharge it again, I can add it back in again, close the lid, put another candle on top, and restart the recharging process. Do remember though that outside of the summer solstice season, the solar energy is not going to be quite as powerful if you are in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, then the winter solstice is going to be your most powerful time for that solar energy. So work accordingly, and just bear in mind that it's not always going to be powerful every single day out of the year, but it is a good way of amplifying that energy. You can also adapt this for lunar energy as well. So that's another option. I'm just going to throw that out there for all of you. So that is the first thing. The next thing I'm doing for this Sabbat is some divination. Now, I adore Sabbat divination. I find it to be a really effective way of breaking up my year, and it means that when I do divination on the Sabbat, I'm only working from one Sabbat to the next. And this really allows me to have a shorter time frame to work within, and it means that my readings are more accurate. For this Sabbat, I've created a 6-card spread, though you can use this with tarot, oracle, Lenormand. You can also use it for runes and Ogham if that is something that you do work with instead. This was influenced by the 6 months of the year that we've already gone through to get to this Sabbat season, and also the standing stones of Stonehenge. It's read in a circular motion, and it starts with a problem that you are having in your life, and it moves around to the process of resolving it, and then the final result is the 6th and final card. I really enjoy using this spread. I have used it several times already this Sabbat season, and I am loving the results. This kind of spread is something that I will adapt per Sabbat season, but especially with its emphasis and its connection to this particular Sabbat, I find it to be really useful. I would love to know the kind of spreads that you yourself are using at this time of year. Do you have one spread that you use all the time, all day, every day, or do you use different spreads based on the time of year that you are working in? Please let me know in the comments. I would absolutely love to know more about this subject. Moving onwards, I've then created some sun water for this Sabbat season. Now, sun water isn't quite as popular as its counterpart moon water, but it can be used in many of the same ways. You can use sun water for many different things. You can use it for imbuing solar energy into other spells and rituals. You can use it in cleansing. You can use it in water magic, and also with scrying if you do want to add a little bit of that energy in there as well. You can use it to work with solar deities and fire deities. There are many, many different options. For me though, I'm primarily going to be working with this in regard to that fiery cleansing agent. What I really want is to kind of burn away any of that stagnant energy in a slightly different way than I would usually do. After all, people do say that a change is as good as a rest, and sometimes I find that just changing up my cleansing technique is better than doing something really strong. Sometimes you just need something just a little bit different. If you are planning on drinking your sun water, please make sure that you are using fresh water in a food and drink safe container. Make sure that you are not adding anything into it that is potentially going to damage your health or interact with any other medicines. This includes things like essential oils and also crystals. Crystals, unless you are 100% certain it is not going to interact, put it on the outside of that container instead of the inside of that container. It is still really effective. It just isn't going to leach anything potentially harmful into that water. And also do make sure that you are drinking it quickly, ideally within 3 days, kept refrigerated. For me, I am not planning on drinking this water, so I can be a little bit more flexible with what I'm doing. For my sun water, I'm using a very old-fashioned style potion bottle. This actually didn't come with a stopper, so I've created my own handmade stopper with a piece of heat-treated amethyst that is wrapped in jute cord. And I want to say here that this bottle is not going to last long term. It is only going to get me from now to the summer solstice, and at that point it will be dismantled and everything will be taken apart. This kind of stopper is not going to last. It isn't something that I would recommend for long-term use. It is something that I wanted to use as a very temporary fix-it solution for this particular sun water, and so I have had to, after the fact, make it a little bit more waterproof just so it doesn't go everywhere. Inside, I am then adding some boiled water that has been allowed to cool down. That's why it steams just a little bit. And inside, I'm also adding a small amount of chamomile powder. Now, this is going to add that water a little bit of a yellow golden hue and really makes it resonate for me with that solar energy. Chamomile is also a plant that I very strongly resonate with both the water element and the solar energy, and so for me I find it a perfect combination for sun water. It's also just my favourite plant to work with, and so I find the energy to be really useful within my magical practice. I'm also adding in some rose quartz chips into there, just to really emphasise that I want that positive, that gentle solar energy, and not necessarily the burn through everything, your life is in complete chaos kind of solar energy that you can get on occasion. So I really wanted to emphasize that point. This sun water is then charged by me. I seal it up by putting the lid on it, and then I am melting some wax over the top of that jute thread just to make sure that where possible I'm keeping it as watertight as I can. I have also created a solar sigil. This is the same sigil that I spoke about earlier on in this video that is designed to represent that positive solar energy being drawn into my working. This will then be placed underneath the solar water bottle in a location that is going to get some ambient sunlight. Emphasis on ambient sunlight. It's important to remember that glass and also glass spheres are very good at magnifying energy. And so if you're not careful, you might find that that energy gets magnified so much it burns things in your home. So please, if you're going to do this, place your sun water in a location of ambient sunlight rather than direct sunlight, as it's that direct sunlight that can really cause you harm. So that is my solar water. I'm very happy with it. I am going to allow this to sit in sunlight every day for at least a few hours up until the summer solstice. Upon the summer solstice, I will then be decanting it and adding it into some spray bottles that I will then use for my own personal house cleansing, as well as a few other herbs and items in there that I will use for that. And that's my specific purpose. There are so many different ways of making sun water. I will leave some links in the description box for different varieties by different practitioners. So have fun with it, but always, always be safe with it. Next, we're going to be talking about some unwinding that I'm going to be doing. While lots of people will do active spellwork and ritual during the Sabbat season, and I enjoy doing it to a degree, I think it's also a really good time to sit, to relax, to think, and to meditate. And so this is a really good time of year to sit outside in nature if it's comfortable for you to do so, and spend a little bit of time connecting both to yourself and to the world around you. Especially at this time of year, I find the sunshine to be so invigorating. I love the heat though. I am essentially like a lizard. If I am not warm, I am not functioning. That is how I work. So I really enjoy even going on meditative walks. I love walking around my local neighborhood. I really enjoy walking out into nature and having no real aim to that walk. I simply allow myself to drop into a meditative state as I am walking. I'm still aware of my surroundings and I'm still being safe about where I'm going, but I'm not walking with any kind of purpose. I don't have a destination in mind. Instead, I'm just ambling around. And when I'm in these states, I tend to find that I am the most creative. I come up with a lot of ideas. I find answers to problems and answers to questions. And this is a great way of getting exercise, getting some sunshine. As long as you wear sun cream, please always wear sun cream. And also getting to spend some time out in nature in a really relaxed, meditative state if possible. If being outside isn't really your thing, then doing some meditations, guided visualizations, or simply some journaling inside is a really great thing that you can do. And if you're finding the heat completely overwhelming, you can always learn some techniques, perhaps some relaxation or even some astral projection or lucid dreaming techniques that you maybe hadn't thought of before. And that brings me on to today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is essentially a one-stop shop app for mindfulness and meditation. They've won the Best of Apple award and have over 7 million users, and I can see why. I've personally found it to be incredibly useful within my own life and practice, and perhaps some of you will too. The app contains so many different categories. They have sleep stories, they have meditation courses, they have sleep sounds, they also have affirmations, guided meditations, visualizations. They have so much to offer. And I have found I particularly enjoy using their meditation courses, which are both for beginners and more advanced practitioners to develop and grow their meditation skills, and also their section on sleep sounds, which allow me to sleep more soundly, offering me more access to lucid dreams and also dream recall, which can be incredibly useful if you do want to start working with your dreams and dream magic. Now, Aura is free to get started, but they have offered the first 500 people to click the link in the description box 25% off their membership and a free trial. So that will be linked in the description box, and I hope that some of you will have the same positive experience with the app that I have within both my practice and my day-to-day life. So thank you so much, Aura, and that is something I'm really going to be focusing on for this Sabbat season, is that inner work, especially things that I have neglected. And so I do tend to find that I forget to do my meditations, I forget to do my relaxations, my dream journals, all of these inner work things that can be really useful and beneficial, I tend to neglect. And so if you are also like me, this could be a really good time to kind of add those slowly back into your practice again. This Sabbat, I also set up my Litha Altar, and I'm so happy with it. I managed to include some active spell work and ritual on it this time, which I am really happy about. There's just something about having active spell work and ritual that is sitting and charging on an altar that just makes it so magical for me. I did include a few slightly different things than I normally would on this altar. So the first is that I finally got a new crystal ball. I got a Priscelli Bluestone crystal ball that I got from a recent event. It is sitting in my god statue and I love it. As mentioned earlier, Priscelli Bluestone is connected to Stonehenge, and for me, as mentioned, it's connected to the other world, to spirituality, to connection with magic and nature. It's a really significant stone for me, and so not only have I included it in spellwork and ritual, I'm also including it on my altar, and I'm very happy about it. I have a few cards laid out. They are from 2 different decks. I forget the names of the decks. I think one is the Living Altar Oracle and the other is the Oracle of the Pagan Spirit. I think that's correct. If not, I will put the names on the screen. I really enjoy using decks and cards within my altar setups, especially cards that I find really difficult to shuffle. So for me, the Oracle of the Pagan Spirit I find difficult to read because it really is a one-draw card kind of reading that you need to do, and I'm kind of moving away from that, so I add those onto the altar for that purpose. The Living Altar Oracle I find really difficult because it's so massive. It's so hard to shuffle, and so primarily I will use the cards on altars, and I just think they are so beautiful. So I'm really excited with how this turned out, and it's just revitalized my entire space. If you don't change your altar up at all, I'd recommend just every few months just switching a few things around. You don't need to set up a whole Sabbat altar or anything like that, but just mixing and matching a few items can massively change the energy of the space, and it just feels so nice. The last big thing I'm doing this Sabbat season is to use some of that fiery energy in a burning ritual. Now, burning rituals are often used to remove things from your life, but for this particular purpose, I wanted to draw things in. Now, when you're doing this style of working, you can do it in 2 different ways. So you can have it be a bonfire, which is also commonly carried out at this time of year, especially on the summer solstice itself, or you can do a contained cauldron fire, which is what I'm going to be doing. When doing anything involving fire, please make sure you have fire safety equipment on hand. That could be a fire blanket, that could be a fire extinguisher, that could be water, some way of putting out that fire and containing it safely. I wouldn't do any of my rituals without fire safety equipment on hand, so please make sure you do the same to keep yourself and to keep others safe as well. Now, for this working, I'm going to be using a cast iron cauldron. You really can use anything that is fire safe, but I would typically recommend sticking to something that isn't going to be used later for cooking, because you are going to be burning herbs, and it's quite likely that you don't want that crossover and that contamination between the two. I have a kind of middle of the road sized cauldron. You can use big cauldrons, small cauldrons, whatever you have access to, it's entirely up to you. I'm also going to be using some charcoal discs. These are just general charcoal discs that you can get from an occult store. I'm also using a pair of charcoal tongs so that I can safely hold said charcoal disc because they do burn incredibly hot. I'm also going to be using some solar incense. Now for me, I'm using solar incense because inside are all of the herbs that I personally resonate with the solar energy. It was easier for me to grab my solar incense than it was to grab each individual container of herbs, but if you do only want to use certain herbs, if you do only have access to certain herbs, you can completely do this with just a few herbs that you have in your collection. Just make sure that it is safe to breathe in the smoke, because even if you're going to be doing this outside or in a ventilated space inside, emphasis on ventilated space, please make sure you have windows and doors open, these kind of things, just to let the smoke out. You need all of your herbs to be safe to breathe in, because even if you're just breathing in a little bit of it, it can cause you a lot of problems if it is dangerous to you. I'm then also going to be using a candle for lighting my pieces of paper on fire, and a piece of paper that I am going to be writing down all of my goals that I want to manifest. For this ritual, we're using that positive solar energy to attract things into our life. If you want to do the opposite and you want to remove things from your life, you can totally do that too. Just write the negative things that you want to remove on this piece of paper and have that intention in mind when you are reaching out to that solar energy. That's the other way of doing it. So it's based on what you are asking for. If you are asking for attraction, that is what you will get. If you are asking for removal, that is what you're going to get. So just be careful with how you word things. Try to word things in the best way you can. So I start this off by lighting a charcoal disc. So I do this by holding this over a flame for a few seconds until it starts to crackle and pop. You'll see it fizzing. It's the best way I can describe it, is it kind of fizzes. And then when it's fizzed for a little while in the charcoal tongs, I will drop it into my cauldron and allow it to start going white and pale. This is when you know that charcoal disc is really hot and it's ready to have incense placed upon it. I will, in the meantime, write out my intentions in strips along that paper and then rip them out. I wrote across the entire width of this small piece of A5 paper, and then I ripped between each statement as I went down. Now I chose, I think, 5 or 6 different statements. I wouldn't necessarily write a whole sheet. The fewer you have, the more powerful they will manifest. The more you have, the less powerful they will manifest, because you're spreading their energy over multiple different intentions. I find 4 to 6 tends to be that sweet spot. You can get a lot done without overwhelming the situation. Now when that charcoal disc is ready, I take a sprinkle of the herbs that I'm using and I will sprinkle it on top of that charcoal disc and I will allow it to smoke. And then while it is smoking, I will take each individual piece of paper, set it on fire, and then I will drop it into the cauldron. If you need to, you can use a pair of tweezers, you can use charcoal tongs, you can even use barbecue tongs if you want, to make sure that you are staying safe when you are setting these pieces of paper on fire, and then I will drop them into the cauldron. I do this with each individual piece, reaching out to that solar energy and requesting aid each time I do this. Once all of those pieces of paper have burned, I'll then use the last of that charcoal disc to sprinkle a few more herbs on top, and then I will allow it to cool down. Now once it is completely cool, I'm going to go in with my charcoal tongs and I'm going to mush it all together. So essentially you're turning everything into a powder, essentially. And then that powder is going to be returned to the earth. Now for me, what I'm thinking of doing with it is to actually add it to some soil that I'm going to be growing some herbs in, primarily herbs like rosemary, which are very fire element heavy plants. And so for me, that really is going to bring it all full circle. And then as that plant grows, it's manifesting that intention even more. If that's not something you can do, you can simply add it to a garden bed. You can simply return it to the earth where you see fit, but do make sure that you mix it in with other things and you're not just leaving a pile of just ashes on the floor, because that's going to confuse a lot of people. Ideally, you would want to do this in a piece of land that you own. So this is why plant pots are really useful. You can do this if you have a balcony or if you have a window box, something like that. You really want to keep this energy close to you, as it's really going to continue imbuing and adding into your life as the season goes on. Now you can adapt this working. If you want to work with lunar energy, you can do that too. You change the kind of plants that you are adding in, you change the wording that you use for that intention, and then you can completely mix and match the way that working is going to manifest. It is super duper flexible. So with all of the spells and rituals that I've gone over today, you can completely adapt them, change them, mix and match them, whatever it is works best for your magical practice. And this is why it's always so difficult for me to recommend specific spells for specific things, because I would always recommend changing things up to suit what you need in your particular magical practice and your life. So I really hope that you did enjoy the variety of things that I've included in this video. I would really love to know what you are doing for your Sabbat season. Are you doing spells and rituals? If so, what are you doing? Feel free to omit what you're actually doing if you don't feel comfortable to say that, but if you're doing spells and rituals, do feel free to let me know. Are you doing divination? Are you going to a group gathering? I know that there are quite a few group gatherings happening this year. What are you going to be doing? Let me know. I would absolutely love to know. Feel free to give this video a like. It really means a lot to me. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community, feel free to post a comment down in the comment section. A massive thank you to my sponsor Aura, who really helps to keep my channel going and helps to support my videos and my content. It really means a lot to me and I really enjoy using the app, so that is just a massive bonus for me. And if you enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. I will also, on the end screen and in the description box, be adding a link to last year's Litha video, so if you would like to learn a little bit more about the other ways that you can celebrate this festival, that will be there for you to watch in your own free time whenever you fancy. So with that being said, I hope you're all staying safe, I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! And I need to turn this on. I have officially put new batteries in it. I'm very proud of myself. I have not filmed anything, sit down and chat, in weeks and weeks and weeks, and I am actually kind of nervous about it. It's really weird to start doing it again. Okay, we can do this. Hey everyone, so it's, okay, shoulders back, sit upright, we are going to be pulled to the ceiling. What is the title of today's video? I don't actually know. Rituals and divination techniques that you can use this Lammas. I was doing so well. Okay, let's try this again. The next thing I'm doing this Sabbat. Now I really enjoy doing divination on the Sabbats. It is Let's try that again.